I was running a pretty high functioning team. I myself, in my highest year, I did 108 units, just me and a TC as a buyer's agent. So I was real buyer heavy, but it was just a lot, right? You've got to recruit, you've got to worry about back of house, you've got to worry about liability, admin, you've got to worry about implementing systems, paying for tools. Shall I go on, Ellie? It was a lot of hats, and when you're wearing that many hats, you're stuck in the day-to-day, so that you don't have time to do that bigger picture thinking, so that you can scale, because you're stuck in the grind, right? You're running the brokerage, you're wearing all those hats, you're doing the majority of the production.
Owners of boutique brokerages are in charge of everything. They have all the responsibility on their shoulders. They're in charge of finding and paying for leads for their team. They're in charge of compliance. They're in charge of recruiting and implementing systems and tech stack and paying for it, covering all the technology for their agents. And if one of their agents messes up, guess who's held liable? You as the broker owner. What makes things even more frustrating sometimes is the highest producing agent is also the broker owner, who's already in charge of everything else. A lot of times, that broker owner has to stay in production in order to keep the entire brokerage afloat. And that catches up to every broker owner at some point. And in this case, in today's interview, you're gonna see that it actually drove this one broker owner to the point of alcoholism. He was an alcoholic for 8 years. This is an interview of someone who used to be an indie broker owner, who struggled with all of the above, who joined Exp Realty. So we're gonna cover exactly all of the successes he and his team have had since they joined EXP. He joined EXP in 2020, brought along his entire team with him, and since partnering with EXP, he's been able to run a more profitable brokerage. He's been able to recruit easier. He's gotten a lot of time back in his schedule. He was able to eliminate a ton of expenses. He's been able to offer healthcare to his agents, which he wasn't able to before, which actually led one of his agents to save a ton of money on one of their double knee surgeries, and he wouldn't have had that option if they weren't with EXP. So the EXP healthcare program ended up saving that agent a lot of money. His agents are now the most profitable they've ever been, making the most amount they've ever been making. And most importantly, his lifestyle has changed. He no longer struggles with alcoholism. He's been sober for 8 years. His quality of life has improved, as well as the quality of life of everyone on his team. Today we have Steve Pugh out of St. Cloud, Florida. And if you'd like to reach out to either one of us to see what partnering with EXP would look like, even though Steve and I are not in the same family tree, EXP does a great job of collaborating. So I'm leaving his phone number, I'm leaving my phone number. Reach out to either one of us. Feel free to book a call on my Calendly link. The link is in the description below. Enjoy today's episode. Steve, talk to me about your backstory. What made you originally decide to run your own brokerage?
How much time do we have?
30 to 45 minutes.
There you go. That should give me enough time. So backstory, got into the business when I was 19, had some menial jobs between graduating high school and going into real estate. And my dad, of all people, suggested that I try taking up a career in real estate. So went ahead and got my license at 19, started at a boutique brokerage, worked there for about 5 years, and knew that, that I didn't want any limitations. I wanted to continue to grow. And then obviously, I think that the expected career path or future of an agent is, you know what I mean? You get your license, you're an agent for a while, then you get your broker's license, then you run a team, you sell a few houses, or you open up your own brokerage. That is kind of the expected progression, if you will. So I took that path, opened up my own brokerage at 23, and then ran it for 16 years until I saw the light. And that's about it. I mean, the brokerage did well. I got real intentional with it probably about 8 years ago. And I really started to focus on growing the brokerage. I had some challenges in my past, as we all do. So I I was probably, for the 16 years that I owned the brokerage, I was probably drunk for about 11 of those. So sobered up by the grace of God, I reached down and plucked me out of a situation that I was in, and because of His mercy, I am 8 years sober and
Wow.
going on 8.5 now.
Wow.
And yes, ma'am. And I got real intentional, right? So that's what got me here, because I was able to really look at the business, and I knew that there was a better way.
Wow. Congratulations on 8.5 years sober. That is amazing.
I
That's
appreciate
great.
you saying that. Sometimes I think I bring it up too quick, but I do it because it was just a progression and a natural part of my story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
What were
yeah.
some of the other specific struggles with running the brokerage for 16 years? When you say you saw the light, what were the struggles that you had as a brokerage owner?
Well, doing the majority of production yourself, trying to wear multiple hats. I was running probably from 2015 to, when did I align with EXP? It's been 3.5, 4 years ago. So to end of 2020, I was running a pretty high functioning team. I myself, in my highest year, I did 108 units, just me and a TC as a buyer's agent. So I was real buyer heavy, but it was just a lot, right? You've got to recruit, you've got to worry about back of house, you've got to worry about liability, admin. You've got to worry about implementing systems, paying for tools. Shall I go on, Ellie? It was a lot of hats. And when you're wearing that many hats, you're stuck in the day to day, so that you don't have time to do that bigger picture thinking, so that you can scale, because you're stuck in the grind, right? You're running the brokerage. You're wearing all those hats. You're doing the majority of the production. So if I look back and I looked at my agent count in 2015 when I started getting intentional, and I looked at my agent count prior to joining or aligning with EXP, there was no difference. I mean, we were a successful boutique brokerage, don't get me wrong, but there was a lot going on there. So I knew I needed leverage to grow.
How much were you spending running the day-to-day, month-to-month operations of the boutique brokerage? And then what was the difference of when you joined EXP?
Okay, so I try to track my numbers. I'm not as granular as I could be. Obviously, operating expenses, we were running somewhere around 35%. Ideally, I wanted to be at 30. And I can give you one example. There's multiple, but the one that comes to mind is we were running Boomtown CRM, and 1,500 a month, I think, just for that many seats for the agents that we had. And then obviously aligning with EXP, we have KV Core for $85 a month. So there's a big difference there. Yeah. That was one example. I can't give you a definitive number, but as a total, but that's one example.
Yeah. And I'm sure that it's a lot more than that, being that your liability then reduced. You don't have to pay for everyone else's E&O insurance, since the agents do that now for themselves at a pretty good cost. And by good, I mean low cost. What made you decide to join EXP specifically?
Well, I had an ego issue. Some people will probably tell you I still do. So edging God out. That's ego, right? Edging God out. So it was my brokerage. I started it. I founded it. I built it. So it was very difficult for me. It took about 8 months. I have another interesting story here, Ali. My significant other got into the business, and was licensed. And she met with somebody regarding the model, took the time to look at it, and I did as well. But I still had that ego factor going on that inhibited me from making that move when I should have, right? I'm glad that I did now, but it took me about 7 or 8 months to actually do it. She left. She said she was licensed under me as a licensed realtor, right? And we were working together. She said, I'm out of here. I'm going to EXP. If you want to come, that's up to you. So yeah, kudos to her, because I don't think that if she'd have done that, I'd probably still be in that messy middle day-to-day struggle that I was in. So yeah, she actually got up and left, and 8 months later I joined. And I'll give you one moment here. The reasons, basically, I knew I wanted to grow, and I didn't want to be the smartest guy in the room. I wanted to align myself and be around people that were bigger, better, and smarter than I was. And that's what I found. And it's an incredible community, and I love it.
That's great. I like that acronym that you have for ego. And in our community, we say ego is not your amigo. Ego will never push you in the right direction. So, and I feel like that's a lot of broker owners, boutique owners, they should have pride. They built a brokerage. They're running a team. But a lot of times they're not as profitable as they want, or a lot of times the broker owner themselves are the most profitable agent, which is not the reason that they built the team to begin with. So since you joined EXP and you brought your team over, talk to me about culture. Were you able to keep the culture? Because a lot of people say a lot of their ego, their pride is that they have autonomy over their brokerage that they own, and that they have a great culture. And I think a lot of times people get a little bit dubious. They don't really realize that they can keep that same culture with EXP. The only thing that changes is just powered by EXP. So talk to me about how culture changed, or if it didn't, in your community.
Did not at all. And I don't want to speak on anybody else's behalf. I think that maybe they're disguising their ego in the culture. Or in that culture comment, if you will. In some cases, maybe they're using that to disguise their ego and the fact that they would have to sacrifice their brokerage per se if they did align. So yeah, we nothing's changed. We have a brick and mortar location. They don't micromanage. I've never had somebody from EXP through the front door. Not that we have anything to worry about in terms of adhering to all the guidelines, but they've never even stepped foot in here. So culture has not changed. We've kept the same culture. We've kept our own branding with respects to being a local authority in the community, and that's all I can tell you, Ali. I mean, it is crucial that people, other independent broker owners out there, understand that, right? And going back to that profitability piece, I mean, if I'd have taken my personal production out of the equation, then yeah, at the end of the day, if I was being honest with myself, what was I doing it for?
Yeah.
So
have any of your agents used the health insurance, Clearwater?
We have a couple of our business partners that do use it, and it's been a great benefit. We had one individual that had double knee surgery using the insurance, and it would have been considerably more based on his old policy. So yes. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Oh man, good. Yeah, good for them. Because not only can you run a less expensive brokerage, but now you can allow your team to have stocks, revenue share of their own. They can build their own team within your team, and they have the opportunity now to potentially get healthcare if they're looking for it. When you were moving your team over, what was logistically, what was that like? with the help of EXP?
I want to go back real quick because
Yeah.
you said something in there, and I want to make sure that people hear this because this is kind of important. So you made a comment about the stocks and that, and the healthcare. So I had my biggest producer that fought me. Is it tooth and nail? That's the way we say it, right? Tooth and nail.
Yeah.
Yeah. She fought me. I always say like hand and tooth or something. I don't know. I butcher it. So she fought me tooth and nail on the move, and you make a mistake. Why would you do this? Da 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 da. And she stuck with me, and she texted me. Where are we? She texted me in January of last year, and said, thank you. This is the most money I've ever made in real estate. So. And there's another piece to this, but what I found was I was compromising the growth of my agents because I was, wrapped up in my own ego. So by bringing them, now they themselves and their families, in this instance, have been more profitable, and they have more opportunities that they wouldn't have had with me as an independent broker owner, And then this same lady, she took a relative in, a young girl. She's probably 12 years old. She had an abusive relationship with her father. And so she took this young lady in, and this was in the beginning of, probably about a year into EXP. And the young lady was having issues with dental hygiene in her teeth because she really wasn't the best upbringing. And the lady, my business partner, you know what I mean? Obviously, she's a single mother. So funds at that time, until she started becoming real profitable, she's actually the top producer as of the shooting of this podcast in the city. So she was at a point where her income, and she went into her stock account. I'm getting there. Bear with me, Ali. She went into her stock account, and she had no idea. And she went in there, and somebody suggested, because she didn't have the full money to do this young lady's teeth, and the money was in there. She cashed in the stock that she wanted to, and she was able to. So it's stories like that, right? She wouldn't have stock if she was working still with me as an independent broker.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, sorry to go off. What was your question?
That's an incredible story. And there are so many stories like that. I was talking to someone previously who got out of the business. So that's why she left EXP, forgot about the stocks, had to split up with her partner. And story actually sounds kind of similar because it was an abusive situation, spent a Christmas, didn't have any money to provide for her kids for Christmas. One of their Christmases together, her having separated from an abusive partner. And then all of a sudden, months after she got out of EXP, like 6 months after she got out, she received a check in the mail for the exact amount that she needed just to pay for all of the Christmas presents and to carry her through for the next couple of months for the mortgage. It was a check of like $18,000. And that she had just forgotten about. So that's incredible.
So yeah, the stories of that, and that's what makes the difference. So what was that original question? I can't remember now.
It was how the logistics in actually moving a team over. If you can remember back to when you did, because we have the concierge team. Yeah. If you could talk a little bit about the process of moving everyone over.
Okay. So obviously there's a lot of moving parts. I had some great support from my immediate business partners. I think more so now, being in that agent recruiting and attraction space, I think they've done a phenomenal job with everything that's going on with respects to the concierge and the outreach and the onboarding platform that they just instituted. So would it have been better now versus when I did it 3.5 years ago? Yes. But even back then, it wasn't terrible. It's always awkward. Change is awkward. It's difficult. but we got through it and we streamlined everything, and things are good.
How big is has your team increased? Has anyone attracted any other agents into your community?
Yeah. So right now we had six agents at the time of the move. We have 51 business partners right now, and that's growing. We just fostered a new relationship down in South Florida, in the Miami area. So we're growing that area. We've got business partners in Polk County, in Volusia County, in Orange County. So yeah, we're growing. I mean, it takes time, but we have a 5-year plan, and there is nowhere else that I would want to be to see that plan through to fruition.
That's amazing. What does your revenue share look like with 51?
Averaging right now, I mean, obviously we've seen some fluctuations because of the market, but let's just say that it more than covers my mortgage payment and my car payment. So
that's great.
Yeah, so it's somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 on average.
That's awesome. Yeah, and all of that, the less stress that you have to deal with to focus on the mortgage, focus on XYZ, the more time and effort and mental bandwidth you can put into your team.
Of course.
So that's great. That's great. Congratulations. When other broker owners that are going to be listening to this, that are back in, your shoes that you were years ago, of being in the rat race of running their own brokerage, like you said previously, not being able to take a fresh breath to look at the bigger picture, what would you say to them? Like, what would you tell yourself before you made the switch to EXP?
Humble yourself and just lift your head up. I think we get caught up in the day-to-day grind, and I would also look at further ahead, right? Like if you give most people an option, you want $100,000 now or $1 million in 5 years, most people would take the $100,000 now. So it's looking what things could look like in the long term, so that when we exit this business, right, we don't expire instead of retiring. We actually get to retire. So it's just looking at that long term. It's being honest about your situation, and like, it's not for everybody, right? We're not here to sell it to anybody. We're here to lead with enthusiasm and just try to have people keep an open mind. The most expensive thing you can own is a closed mind, right? So they've got to stay in curiosity and keep an open mind. What would I tell myself? I'd tell myself exactly those same things, and that to be bold and not to fear change, because I think that was part of my challenge, right? Was being afraid of the change. Yeah. So.
Before I ask you where people can reach out to you, what topics have we not covered that you'd like to mention?
I'd like to mention that Arsenal Football Club is the best team in the world. So if you support a soccer team, you need to switch to Arsenal, okay? And that if you don't have a close relationship with God, work on it every day, because He's the one that matters, and that's the relationship that matters. That's it.
Love that. When people have questions, they listen to this and they maybe are in the same shoes that you were at, how can people best contact you?
Absolutely. By all means, if I can give any advice and put anybody at ease, or if anybody is thinking of at least having discussions or talks about about what that transition looks like, direct cell, 407-873-0057. If I don't answer, text me. I'll get back to you within 2 hours.
Sounds good. Steve, thank you so much for jumping on. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ali. Thank you for having me.